So I figured I'll dedicate this week's shir to Hanukkah, but also to Sefer Vayikra. Anyone want to guess the connection between Vayikra and Hanukkah?
Menorah?
Yom Hashmini.
Very good. Okay. That you caught the title.
Yes.
Sure. Because Yom HaShmini is the first Hanukkah. I'll explain why. When we call Hanukkah Hanukkah, the real reason, Sefer Maccabim, is because of Chanukat HaMizbeach. No, the Mizbeach, in Sefer Maccabim, I said, and Chazal talk about it. When the Greeks came in, they profaned the Mizbeach, and for 3 years, the Mizbeach was a Mizbeach for Zeus and for Avodah Zarah. When they took over Har HaBayit, they couldn't use the Mizbeach because it was defiled. They couldn't get rid of it because it wants to be Hashem. So they took it apart. They put it in Geniza, into safekeeping. There was a shar in the Mikdash that had the lishka, a little office that had the stones, waiting for Eliyahu to come to explain what to do. And that was going to be. And then what they did after getting everything up on the 25th of Kislev, after working probably about a month by making everything new, they picked the 25th of Kislev on purpose to do Chanukat HaMizbeach. And the original Chanukah is called Chanukat HaMizbeach, 8 days, most likely because the Mishkan was 7 days plus the 8th day was the first day it was dedicated. Now, I want to use this though to explain the Torah reading for Hanukkah. So I'm going to share my source sheet. Actually, we have to. I didn't do my shtick. 1 second.
No, it's not good to do it now. You can't. It'll mess up the recording. Trust me, we'll edit it. Not in the middle.
We started. Okay, it's fine. Already. So I had lots of time to prepare a source sheet on the plane. So here we go. We have like this. So as Hanukkah is a week away, we dedicate this year to highlight the thematic connection in Sefer Vayikra and the Torah reading for Hanukkah, which is Bamidbar chapter 7. And we'll show you Bamidbar chapter 7 should be in Sefer Vayikra. So just a quick outline we've been doing all along. We did the first 7 chapters, and now we're going to focus on the story of dedicating the Mishkan. It's the first narrative, other than the Makalel later on, the only narrative in Sefer Vayikra. And we explained last week or 2 weeks ago, this narrative belongs in Sefer Shmot because the story of the commandment to do the 7 days of Miluim was given in Parshat with Trumat Tetzaveh, together with the commandment to do the Mishkan. Everything in Trumat Tetzaveh is repeated in Vayikra Pekudei, except for the 7 days of Miluim. So that was the good side. The air conditioner went off, and now we should have a better sound. Now, I want to begin with what happened on Rosh Chodesh Nisan in the 2nd year. So I want to go to the final verses of Sefer Shmot, and just as an introduction, we're going to find that after the sin of the golden calf, God's Shekhinah was taken away, and God only spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu outside the camp. Remember? In the Olamid Michutz Lamachaneh. And God's Shekhinah could not be in the camp. If anyone wanted to meet God, they had to leave the camp. That was in Shmot chapter 33. Then God tells Moshe, after he comes out with the second Luchot, V'asu l'mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. And now for the next 6 months, the nation builds a Mishkan. And finally, when the Mishkan is built, the Shekhinah is going to return to the Mishkan. So the end of Shmot talks about putting the Mishkan together and the Shekhinah returning. Sefer Vayikra, in chapter 8, we'll talk about the Shekhinah returning on Yom HaShmini, which I'll try to prove it has to be, almost for sure has to be the same day. I know there's an argument among the Parshanim, but I think the simplest explanation is it has to be the same day. And then we're going to see the Torah reading for Hanukkah and Sefer Bamidbar is also on the same day. And the question is, why is each version or each account of that day given in the 3 different books? So first, I want to just read the end of Sefer Shmot, chapter 40, to prove my point that Rosh Chodesh Nisan in year 2 is the day of Chanukat HaMishkan. Okay, now, it goes like this. Vaydaber Hashem Moshe lemor. B'yom HaChodesh HaRishon b'Echad HaChodesh takim et Mishkan HaMoed. The end of Parshat Pekudei, the end of Sefer Shmot, God tells Moshe, wait for the first day of Nisan and put together the Mishkan HaMoed. Now, before I want to take a quick break. Does anyone know a midrash that says that they finished building all the kelim, all the vessels for the Mishkan, everything was ready to put together on a certain day, but then God said, wait a couple months until Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Anyone remember a midrash?
Hanukkah. Yeah.
Yeah. In the beginning of Balotcha, it's a midrash a lot of people know because it's a Rashi early on the first Aliyah, so people are familiar. Rashi says when Aaron was upset because he had no part, on the day with all the Nisim, with all the princes bringing the korbanot, he felt bad. And God said, "Don't worry. With this Mishkan, you're in the back seat. But in Bayit Sheni, the date of the 25th of Kislev, the date that everything was ready, like the date of 25th of Kislev was sort of waiting for a special moment because that was the day everything was finished the first time around. And now it's going to happen. It's going to be dedicated in Bayit Sheni. But already, Chazal tied this pasuk over here, or this date over here, to Hanukkah. Later we'll see why. So let's continue. And we have to pay attention to the words now in this commandment. God says as follows. Put the Aron and cover with the Parchot, etc. We can skip putting all the things together, but you bring the Shulchan into the Moed. You put the bread on the Shulchan, on the showbread. You bring the menorah. You light the candles. You put the Mizbach HaZahav, etc. We'll put everything together. I'm going to skip to Pasuk Tet. V'lakachtet shemen hamishcha. Take the anointing oil. Umashachtet the mishkan v'tko asher bo. Anoint the mishkan, everything in it. V'kidashto to v'tko kela v'ya kodesh. This reminds us, remember, of Yaakov's matzeva in Beitel, where he would put oil on the matzeva to mark this place to build a house for God. Here we have a similar act of putting oil as for dedication of this place to be a house for God. Now, we do Meshicha, we do anointing oil on all the vessels of the Mishkan. That's indoors. And outdoors, we anoint the outside Mizbeach and all its kelim, and we sanctify it. Remember this pasuk? I'm just going to read it again because that's to ring a bell. It says, take shemen and mishcha u'mashachtet hamishkan bet kosher bo b'kidashtoto u'mashachtet mizbeach olah bet kokelav b'kidashtoto. If I go to the opening line of Bamidbar chapter 7, which is where we begin the Torah reading for Hanukkah, a week from tomorrow, it'll be as follows. Listen, Vayi biyom kalot Moshe lakim et hamishkan. That's got to be the same day. Okay. Vayimshach oto vaykadesh oto v'et kol kelav v'et hamizbeach v'et kol kelav vayimshachem v'kadesh otam. I hope that's obvious, the connection between them. It's on two different pages, but you can't miss the connection between them. If I need, you can draw the line just to make sure it's crystal clear. Where's my little line drawer? Here we go. No, that's not it. We need an arrow. Here we go. We have, says, Vayimshachoto, okay? Et Mishkan vet kol kelav, Mishkan vet kol asher bo, Mishkan vet kol kelav, the Mishkan vet kol kelav, et hamizbeach vet kol kelav. Got it? Vaykadesh otam, v'kidash et hamizbeach, vaykadesh otam. That should be obvious. Therefore, in Bamidbar chapter 7, the Torah reading for Hanukkah chronologically belongs in the end of Sefer Shemot on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. And the question is going to be, why is this in Sefer Bamidbar and not in Sefer Vayikra and not in Sefer Shemot? So let's continue. My mistake. Go back to my share. What happened to me? Here we go. My mistake. Here we go. Then, what happened on that day? The Nesim, the princes of the 12 tribes, came together, the heads of all the tribes, the ones in charge of the army. They bring a housewarming gift to the Mishkan, 6 wagons pulled by 12. In other words, each wagon is a 2 ox power wagon. And so every 2 Nesim bring a wagon, and everyone brings one ox, b'shor lachad, and they bring them to the Mishkan. I'm going to stop for a minute. Does anyone remember anything else that happened on that day, on the day of Hakamat HaMishkan? Besides, it was anointed, and they brought all these korbanot of the Nesim. If it's Rosh Chodesh Nisan, there was another event that happened that day.
Nadav and Avihu.
That's in Sefer Vayikra. Now, what did they do wrong, according to Chumash? They did something that God didn't command. We're going to go, maybe just open up a Chumash real fast. It's better. I'm going to go now to Parshat Shmini, open up a regular Chumash. Here we go. And it goes like this. Chumash, here we go.
They burnt the incense without permission.
I mean, they did something. They did something that God didn't command. It says, Asher lo tziva otam. Notice they had good intentions, but the big problem was they did something that God didn't command. Let's read it inside. Okay. Vayikra Moshe, this is, I'm sorry, chapter 8. Chapter 9, my mistake. In chapter 9 in Vayikra, on the 8th day after the 7 days of Miluim, Moshe called Aaron and the elders of Israel. He told Aaron to take a special korban. We'll go back to this in a minute. Bnei Yisrael bring a special korban. We talked about the chatat olah last year. And they bring a korban shlamim. Okay? And they bring all these korbanot to the Moed. And then Moshe says as follows, V'yomer Moshe, Zeh hadavar asher tziva Hashem tasu, v'yer lechem kvod Hashem. Here's what you need to do. Bring these special korbanot, and God's glory will return. Remember we saw kvod Hashem at the end of Sefer Shemot, dwelling on the Mishkan after they put it all together on that same day. And then Moshe tells Aaron, come to the Mizbeach and bring your chatat olah, and tell the people to do the same thing. And they, I'm sorry, I skipped something. I'm sorry, go back. This is the day God appeared to you, and Kvod Hashem is Kvod Hashem. That's all I needed to show you. And everything is done, Kasher Tziva Hashem et Moshe. I want to point something else out later on in that story. After they bring all the korbanot, and the shok and everything, Aaron waves everything. Then Vaisa Aaron et Yadav et Ha'am, Aaron lifts up his hands and does Birkat Kohanim, and he finishes doing all his avodah, the chatat and the olah and the shlamim. And then Moshe and Aaron go to the Ol Moed, and they come out, they bless the people, and here's the big point, Vayira Kvod Hashem al Kolam. Kvod Hashem now comes on the nation. And Eish comes down and eats the korbanot, and then in chapter 10, Nadav and Avihu, okay, bring Eish, bring fire, they bring Ktoret, and they bring it in front of Hashem, Asher lo tziva otam. They do something God didn't command, and then everyone knows what happened. Fire came and consumed them. Now, let's think for a minute. If this is all happening on the same day, what event happened first? Did the Nisim bring their korbanot before Nadav and Avihu or after Nadav and Avihu?
Before.
Yeah, that was what the Nisim did was that wasn't a decision on the spot. That was a well planned out ceremony, wasn't it? To bring 6 wagons, and we'll see so many korbanot, that was planned months ahead of time, at least weeks ahead of time. What Nadav and Avihu did seems to be on the spot. Now, the problem is, if I go back to Sefer Shemot, take a look at this. I'll go back and share my screen. I'll do a better one now. Let's do a regular Chumash. We don't want to do that. We don't want that. We want Leviticus. What we were doing the end of Shemot. Here we are in chapter 40. If you look what it says here, everything is emphasized, Kasher Tziva Hashem et Moshe. And everything, Kasher Tziva Hashem et Moshe. Remember, Kasher Tziva Hashem et Moshe, probably 15 times. You see the phrase repeated over and over again? What's being emphasized, everything they're doing is Kasher Tziva Hashem et Moshe. In the last line, I put the Chatzer together, and by Moshe Tamalacha, and then again the Anan came, and Kvod Hashem filled the Mishkan, like we mentioned before. So Kvod Hashem came to the Mishkan. We'll go back to these psukim in a minute. Now, if everything has to be done by protocol, and you can't break it, that's what Nadav and Avihu did wrong. What's the problem now with the Nisim bringing the special offering?
Tziva Hashem.
God didn't command it. In other words, what gives them the right to do something that God didn't ask for? So now keep that in mind, and we'll go back now to Sefer. We'll go back now to Sefer. We'll just go back to the same Chumash. I'll give you the English Hebrew Chumash. We'll go back now to Sefer Bamidbar, and we'll see something which seems very incidental, but it's really important. What do they bring? They're bringing wagons as a housewarming gift to help the Levim. Actually, let me stop for a second. If someone builds a new house or remodels, and they have what's called a Chanukah Habayis, give me an example of a present you bring to a Chanukah Habayis, to a like a housewarming gift. Give me something logical. Someone just built a house or remodeled or something like that.
A mezuzah.
Mezuzah. They probably had the mezuzah beforehand. But
a menorah? No, they had that too.
Yeah, something not Jewish. You guys are thinking too religious.
A painting.
A what?
A painting.
I didn't understand that.
A painting for them to hang on the wall.
Oh, painting. Okay, painting is a good idea.
Something sweet, something sweet.
Like what? Like cookies?
Yeah,
What would you bring the cookies in?
Donuts? How about donuts?
But what would you put them in?
Dish.
Yeah,
You
you'd
bring
bring a cookie
dishes.
dish, right? You'd bring
You
a
bring a
cookie
cookie
dish
dish with cookies.
with cookies, and you'd bring maybe a flower vase with flowers inside. And you might make a pot, a cake pot with a cake inside, or understand? Now I'll joke around for a second. If it's a shalom zachar, you put your name on the plate. You know, you bring the cookies on a plate, and you put your name on the plate because you want your plate back. At Chanuchas Habayis, you give them the plate, and you throw the cookies in extra. You follow the difference between the two? Now, what they're doing is you think of a logical house gift that they can use. Now, most likely they have a refrigerator already and things like that. The Nisim come up with a great idea. They know the Mishkan is portable, and they have to schlep it all through the desert. And to have wagons to help transport is a great idea, isn't it? No, they're doing something for the sake of other people and for the sake of the Levites, remember, who aren't going to be political leaders. Right? The Nisim, they're the heads of the army. When the country's about to fight a war, the most influential people and the people that are respected are the big generals in the army or the big political leaders because they have to run the country. People doing the menial things like the rabbis or the teachers, they get sort of second stage. So these people, the Nisim Hem Omdim Al Pkudim, they're in charge of the army. They're these important people, and they're giving a gift to make the Levim feel better and help them out with their job because they have to schlep all this stuff around through the desert. So it's a very thoughtful gift. The question is it okay to donate something like that? Now look what happens carefully. Let's see what happens. We're in Sefer chapter 9.
Is there a pasuk about it? You're going to read the pasuk.
Yeah, here we go. By Vayikra Nisim, the Nisim come and bring the psukim. They're the six wagons. By the Eneglat Sav, it's not a turtle. An Eneglat Sav is a covered wagon, and there's a big question: is it Sav the name of a turtle? And a covered wagon, a transport wagon, looks like a turtle because it's covered and slow, or is the name of the wagon a covered transport wagon called a Tzav? And therefore, a turtle is called a tzav because it looks like a transport wagon. It's covered and goes slow. But ask your local expert on Hebrew. When I looked it up, it was a machloket. Now, let's go back. They bring the Vayikra otam lifnei Mishkan. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, kach meitam. God says this is okay. This initiative is a good one, I think, because it's caring about other people. And then remember, 6 wagons go to Merari because they have the heavy things to carry. 2 wagons go to Gershon. They have the material to carry. The root of the Mishkan and the curtains to go around the Chatzer, around the courtyard. And Bnei Gad don't get any wagons because they carry on their shoulder. Now, in addition to the wagons, they also donate a big kiddush. Here's the word Chanukah. They're going to dedicate the Mizbeach. We're going to have a big cookout. On the day it was dedicated, now you have a Mizbeach. You can bring shlamim. You can bring korbanot. Let's use the Mizbeach and have a big cookout for everybody. And all the Nisim bring this offering in front of the Mizbeach. And then we'll talk about what God says in a minute. Now, it makes sense to me that this happened first. And I want to make up a midrash. What happened? The Nisim, they brought a special korban, and now they're in the spotlight now. God accepts it, and now they want to do something.
Was it there?
no.
Yeah. So what do? So now they also want to do something that wasn't commanded, but what they're doing is something that they're not helping other people. They want to part in the play. They want to bring something. They want to be in the ceremony that's going to bring the Shekhinah, or they bring. Remember, there's 4 different opinions what they did wrong. But the main thing is their motivation is doing something where they're in the spotlight. The Nisim are doing something to put other people in the spotlight. And so thinking about others, I think that's a big difference between, remember, some initiatives in Bamidbar are good, some are bad. This is an initiative which is very positive. We'll see in a minute what korban they bring. Now, if this is the same day as Yom HaShmini, what else did Aaron do after he brought the korbanot on Yom HaShmini? The special korbanot. Remember he did Berchat Kohanim? In Parshat Shmini, it says he did Birkat Kohanim, but it doesn't say what he said. Anyone know where in Chumash we have Birkat Kohanim? And we know it's in our Siddur.
Baloscha, no?
In Sefer Dvarim.
Just before the Hanukkah Mizbeach.
Very good. Okay. So let's go back now. We're in chapter 7 in Sefer Bamidbar. And chapter 7 begins, again, this whole section really belongs either in Sefer Vayikra or at the end of Sefer Shemot. But this is the beginning of chapter 7. If you go back to the end of chapter 6, right before this, what do you have? Vaydaber Hashem Moshe lemor, daber el Aaron ve'abanav lemor, kol tvarchu b'nei Yisrael mor lehem, and then Birkat Kohanim. So there's a big question, what's Birkat Kohanim doing in Sefer Bamidbar? But the fact that it's right next door to Chanukat Hansim makes sense. Now, does anyone remember a custom in Shul that they start the Hanukkah lighting with Birkat Kohanim, at the end of chapter 6 and not with chapter 7? No one's familiar with that?
The Sefer does that.
Yeah, it's that. Nusach Sfar, Edom Mizrach does that, for sure. And I think it makes a lot of sense because it's the same day. Now this time is really cute. Anyone know what precedes Birkat Kohanim in Sefer Bamidbar? What's chapter 6 about? The end of chapter 6 in Bamidbar.
Nazir.
And what does the Nazir bring? Yeah, take a look at what the Nazir brings after his 30 days are over. Not when he's Tameh, but when he's Tameh, he brings the Chatat, Olah, and Hasham. But after his days are over, this is what he brings, and tell me if this sounds familiar. Okay? Here. Zot Torah Nazir, verse 13 in chapter 6 in Bamidbar. Zot Torah Nazir, b'yom lo timei nizro, when he finishes 30 days, he brings the Omoid, v'krivet kavod Hashem, keves ben shnoto tamid echad lo olah, v'kavsa echad bat shnotat tamima lechatat, v'ayo echad tamim l'shlamim. He brings a chatat, olah, and shlamim, and some bread, v'sam matzot, an assortment of different breads, and he brings them, and the ayo he makes a zebach shlamim, on the shlamim, the meat of the shlamim, he brings it with the matzot, and then he shaves himself, etc. Now, we're else in Chumash, and we have tnufa. We wave it in front of Hashem on the chazeh tnufa and shokat truma, and then the Nazir can drink wine. Where else in Chumash do we have someone bringing chatat, olah, and at least a type of shlamim with bread? You guys better know. You don't know? Okay.
Carbon Toda.
No.
No, Bikurim.
No. Let's go back to our Chumash.
Aaron
Aaron on the
on the
day of
eighth
inauguration.
Not Aaron, the 8th day.
I'm sorry.
Close. On the 7 days of
On the-
Miluim, the precede the 8th day.
Each day.
Yeah. On the 7 days of Miluim, remember, we're in chapter 9. In chapter 8, God tells Moshe, take Aaron and his sons and the Begadim, etc. It was after the 7 days of Miluim that turned the Kohanim into Kohanim. What do you bring? You bring, the special clothing. You bring a par chatat and 2 elim. The par is the chatat and the aisle is an olah. And you bring the whole nation together. Okay? And then Moshe says, Zeh davar shesiv Hashem to do. And then Aaron goes to the Mizbeach, they wash him, etc. They put on the clothing. And after they do the clothing, and they anoint them with the clothing, they sprinkle the blood, etc. And they sprinkle the Shem and Mishcha. And then they bring the chatat, and Aaron puts his hands on the chatat. And then after the chatat, they bring all the different parts of the chatat properly. And then they bring the olah, and they do smicha on that. And then they shech the olah. And then you bring the ayal sheni, the second ayal, Ela Miluim, which is the prototype shlamim. They do smicha on it again. And then they sprinkle it on their in the different parts on their ears and the lobes and on the toes. And then they take the shokivin. And then there's the salmat, they take the matzot in front of Hashem. They take one matzah and they put it on the shokah and they wave it. In a nutshell, I hope you caught on. Right? What the Nazir is doing is the same thing that Kohanim do. It's a very similar process that the Kohanim do during the 7 days of Miluim. Now, the only thing missing are the big day kuna. What replaces the big day kuna for the Nazir? Remember? What's called his he cuts off his hair, and that's going to be his presentation. Which is called it's called Nezer. But what does the what's Kohen Gadol have that has the word Nezer in it? Remember the tzitz has the word Nezer? Again, that's a whole share I don't want to get into. All I want to show you is that there's a beautiful parallel between in Sefer Bamidbar, where we have the laws of Nazir, which is basically someone who's not a Kohen, who's taking upon himself to be like a Kohen. Remember? Because then he takes the laws of, remember, he can't become Tamei to Amet. So if someone wants to sort of restart his life and want to become a member of Mamlechet Kohanim V'Goy Kadosh, someone wants to be a Kohen and serve Am Yisrael properly, he takes upon himself Nizirut, and at the end of Nizirut, he's going to do something very similar to what the Kohanim did during the 7 days of Miluim that made them Kohanim. So we have a parallel to the 7 days of Miluim with the laws of Nazir. Then we have Birkat Kohanim, which was done on Yom HaShmini by Aaron. And then we have the special korbanot of Yom HaShmini, which bring the Shekhinah back. Hope that made sense? So it's really cute that in Sefer Bamidbar, we have a parallel section to Sefer Vayikra. So chapter 8 and 9 and 10, Sefer Vayikra, is very similar to what we have in chapter 6 and 7 and 8 in Sefer Bamidbar. Hope that wasn't too confusing. But it makes a little bit of sense in the book. Now let's go back to, we got to get to Hanukkah now finally. We're not going to get there. Here we are. So let's go back to our source sheet, our main source sheet, and see what happened at the end of Sefer Shemot. So in the beginning of Sefer Bamidbar, then Sim all bring their korbanot, and then we see in the end of Sefer Shemot, remember on the first day of the first month in the second year, the Mishkan's put together, everything's done kasher tzibah Hashem et Moshe. Moshe finishes the malacha, and then Vaychas Hanan et Ohel Moed, the cloud covers the tent of meeting. Kvod Hashem maleh et Mishkan.
2:00, okay.
Okay, and then what happens? Moshe can't go in, but the main thing here is the Anan covers the Ohel Moed, and Kvod Hashem is on the Mishkan. The first time Kvod Hashem is within the camp ever since Chet HaEgel. Remember in Har Sinai, on the first 40 days, Kvod Hashem is in Har Sinai. And after Chet HaEgel, Moshe has to take his tent outside the camp. And now, Kvod Hashem finally returns to the people, thanks to the joint effort of building the Mishkan. So it's interesting, what brings the Shekhinah back in Sefer Shemot is the joint effort of the whole nation doing Kasher Tzibah Hashem et Moshe. In Sefer Vayikra, what's going to bring the Shekhinah back? The korbanot of Aaron and the Zkenim, the special korbanot of Yom HaShmini, the korbanot that Aaron brings. And we'll see in a minute what brings the Shekhinah back to Sefer Bamidbar. Now, just a quick review, just to get your bearing straight on the events in Chumash and Rosh Chodesh Nisan. The first Rosh Chodesh Nisan is Parshat HaChodesh, the mitzvah to take the lamb for Korban Pesach. We all know about that. The 10th of Nisan, they take the lamb. The 14th of Nisan, they slaughter the lamb. 15th, we leave Egypt on a full moon. And then we travel from Sukkot, Etam, etc. Then we have the Mana begins. It's just a good little timeline in case you want to save it somewhere. Rosh Chodesh Sivan, they arrive at Har Sinai. Matan Torah, 6th or 7th. Moshe comes for the first 40 days, comes down on the 17th of Tammuz. He prays to give them and re-establish the Brit. He goes up Rosh Chodesh Elul to get the second Luchot and Gas Menot Rachamim. And then from the 11th of Tishrei till the end of Adar, they build the Mishkan. Then they have the 7 days of Miluim and Yom HaShmini. Okay. Now, according to Chazal, here, during these 6 months of building the Mishkan, they finished actually all the things on the 25th of Kislev, and they waited till Rosh Chodesh Nisan to tie the Chanukat Mishkan to the celebration of Hanukkah. Okay. Then it's Rosh Chodesh the second year, and that's Yom HaShmini, dedicate the Mishkan, all these things that happen in Shemot, Vayikra, and Bamidbar. And then the 12 days in Sim bring their korbanot, and then we have Pesach Rishon, Pesach Sheni, and that's a class in Sefer Bamidbar. Now we go back and try to understand what happened in chapter 9 that brought the Shekhinah back. So in Yom HaShmini, God tells Aaron again, in the sense saying, we did this last time, that Aaron needs a Chatat Olah, and the people bring a Chatat Olah. Remember what we called the Korban Machshirin. Just like the 7 days of Miluim, they were bringing this Chatat Olah Shlamim. So now on the 8th day, Aaron has to bring a Chatat Olah. Remember, an Egel Chatat Olah. And Bnei Yisrael bring also a Chatat Olah, but they bring a Sirizim Chatat and an Egel and Keves for Olah. And Shor V'ayil Shlamim, Shlamim is like we had at Har Sinai. Why? Ki Hayom Hashem Nira Lechem. God's glory, God's Shekhinah will return on this day, just like it was in Har Sinai, now that we did this joint effort of building the Mishkan. Okay. They bring everything that God commanded, Moshe, etc. And Moshe tells the people, here's what God commanded, therefore don't break protocol, and God's glory will come. And then we talked about the Aaron does Birkat Kohanim, and then Aaron goes in, they pray, they come out, they bless the people, and Kvod Hashem comes on the Mishkan. So in light of this, we have to go now to chapter 7 about Midbar that we started, and that's just to prove that all this happened on the same day. And we did Birkat Kohanim, we did the Perek Vav. So it's just a summary of what we did on the regular Chumash. And then the Perek Vav, we have Birkat Kohanim on Yom HaShmini. In Perek Zayin about Midbar, we have the Nesim bringing the wagons. And now we're going to talk about the Korbanot. Now, I'll share with you a friend of mine once told me like 30 years ago, Rabbi in Yeshiva. He said, everyone has the question, how come we repeat the 12 Nesim? Why can't we just say, remember we do on Chol Hamoed Sukkot? Remember, just say it once and say Ka'ela. You can do it with nice, we can do a Pazer, whatever you want. Raz La Gerish. You can have Ka'ela, Tasur Layom. Just say, why, or put just the same thing. Why the detail? So his sort of ingest, he said, one time Chumash wants to show you it knows how to repeat itself exactly. Because it's almost an exact repetition, the Korban ring. And that teaches you that when Chumash doesn't repeat itself exactly, it's doing it on purpose. That's sort of ingestion. Sometimes Chumash knows how to repeat itself over and over again. Because on the 7 days of Sukkot, remember, sometimes Umid Chatav v'Niskayam v'Niskam. Remember, they have a beautiful drasha of the letters of Mem Yud Mem for Nisuch HaMayim. So one time Chumash has everything straight, and then we learn from there that we can darshan little changes. Anyway, that's just little insight. Now back to our topic.
It's a lot easier being a Balkari on Hanukkah than on Chol
Hamoed. That's for sure. And better and easier than being Trumat Tesaveh Vayikra Pekudi after Trumat Tesaveh. That's the most confusing one. It's almost the same, but then a lot of changes. Now back to our topic. For some reason, we go the 12 days, but what I want to pay attention to, it's not that each day another Nasi brought his Korban. On the first day, everyone brought the same thing. Do you follow that? In other words, it wasn't one came a day. Rather, on the very first day, all the Nasim came together in a joint effort, and everyone brought the exact same thing. And then God says one a day. So let me show you how we have to read this now in Chumash. Let me open up a, where are we? I'm not with my source sheet. Where are we? I'm sharing my source sheet now or not? No. Here we are. Zoom. Oh, shit. Here we go. I'm going to open up I just like a regular Chumash better. One day we have to get one. Here we are. Devarim. Bamidbar. And chapter 7. I'll make it nice and small so we can see my point. Look at this structure. What do we have? The first 10 psukim, the Nesim are bringing their korbanot. They'll make it nice and small. The first parshiah, they bring the wagons. And then it says, the Nesim all bring Chanukat HaMizbeach on the day it was anointed. And they bring the korban. And what does God say? God decides one at a time. Then we go back in parentheses and say, on the first day was Nachshon from Yehuda, and then we go by order how they traveled, Yisachar, then Zvulun, and then Ruvain, Shimon, and Gad, and then Ephraim, Menachem, Binyamin, and then Bnei Shvachot, Dan, Asher, Naphtali. Now, after giving all 12, we're going to go back now to day 1. Here's my point. Zot Chanukat HaMizbeach is not day 13, it's day 1. There's everything between from day 1 to day 12 is in parentheses. I'm going back now to Pasuk Yud. This is the Chanukat HaMizbeach on the day it was anointed from Bnei Israel. And this is what they all brought together. This is not a summary of everything they brought after 12 days. This is what they brought on the first day. It was each Shevet brought the exact same thing. No one tried to outdo each other to show off more than the other. They all brought a beautiful offering. All each brought the exact same thing. And God says, now that they came with this big show of unity, then I'm going to have everyone have a special day. We have a 12-day Kiddush. Now, when it's all over, second, what's it say? Kol bakar verse Pechet. What's that? 88. Kol bakar zabach shemim v'sim barba parim, edim shishim atudim shishim kvosim elishan shishim. Okay. Zot chanukat hamizbeach achrei mashach oto. That was chanukat hamizbeach on the day that it was anointed, after it was anointed on that same first day. And notice what they brought, by the way. What did they bring? They brought bowls that had full with, what do you call it? Full with ktoret. And then how much they weighed. And then a spoon filled with ktoret. And then they brought a korban olah and a very fancy shlamim, which everyone ate. Now, the last line was if the parak ended in pasuk peichet, no one would complain. That should end the parak. Instead, we have this extra line which doesn't make any sense. Pasuk peitet. I think I have it on the regular source sheet. Let me go back to the one with English Hebrew. There we are. Yeah, I did that there also. No, I didn't have it there. My mistake. Oh, here's the same thing. Yeah. What's it say? When Moshe would come to the Omoed to speak to God, he would hear God's voice speak to him from on top of the kaporet, on top of the Aron, and God spoke to him. Now, don't we know that already? Where's the first time we find out that God speaks to Moshe Rabbeinu from on top of the Kruvim?
In Parshat
When he-
Teruma.
Yeah. In Parshat Truma, we have it with the Aron. Let me show you where it is. We have all this information was already in. Let's do it in Perek Chaf Hey Pasuk Chaf Bet. Shmot Perek Chaf Hey. With the mitzvah to make the Aron, Vasu Aron Atzei Shitim, etc. What's it say here? V'natata kaporet Aron milamala, and bring in the Aron the Edut. V'no'adeti lechasham, I'll meet you on top of the Aron. V'dibarti itcha me'al kaporet mi'ben shnei akruvim, asher Aron Edut, asher kosher saviotcha b'nei Yisrael. So we know this is what's happening. That was the commandment. And the first pasuk of Vayikra, the famous one, it happened already, right? God called Moshe, and God spoke to him from the Moed. So God already talked to Moshe Rabbeinu on the Moed, and we know this is happening. Why is this here? Hope my question is clear. Why is Chumash bothering to tell us now that here's how God spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu? Now, first tell me why. How come no one pays attention to this? How come no one notices the problem? If it was a serious show, people should be complaining. What's going on here? Now, the parak should have ended in pasuk peichet. Now, first time, someone tell me why no one notices this.
Well, Parshat Naso is the longest parsha in the Torah, and this is the last pasuk.
And no one's paying attention after more. No, the Balkori could probably skip a nasi or two and no one would notice the difference, right? He can go from day 11. I mean, you can skip from day 9 to day 11 and probably no one would notice. Unless there's some sticky gabbai watching. No one's paying attention anymore at the end. Same thing. And it goes right past us. Midaber, very good. Good point. Not midaber. He would speak to him. That's a better pronunciation.
Hello.
Yeah. So what I want to claim is, if we have the dating right, what was the first thing that God told Moshe Rabbeinu on Yom HaShmini? Now, we're told that God speaks to Moshe Rabbeinu from the Ol Moed. But what's the first thing God told Moshe Rabbeinu in the Ol Moed after it's built? What was the first dibur? If they put together that day, and that's the day they put it together, it was up before Rosh Chodesh Nisan, God talked to Moshe Rabbeinu outside the camp. Now it says God can talk to Moshe Rabbeinu from in the camp. But what's the first thing God told Moshe Rabbeinu now that the Mishkan is here? You didn't follow, did you? That it's okay to take the presence of the Nisim. if the first thing Nassim did that morning was they brought their present, they didn't offer it right away, but early that morning they came with this massive present, with the wagons and everything on this big day. We're waiting. Aaron didn't do his korban yet, but they brought them. They'll be offered later on, but they bring the wagons early in the day. The first thing that God tells Moshe Rabbeinu from the Oel Moed, now that it's built, it's okay to take the gift of the Nassim. What I'm getting at, what brings the Shekhinah back in Sefer Bamidbar? The unity of the 12 tribes, of the leaders, and not just the unity of all 12, they're all bringing the same thing, and they're all doing something for the sake of other people. It's classic good leadership. Now, tell me, in Sefer Bamidbar, are there any other leadership topics in Sefer Bamidbar?
Korach.
Give me an example of
Korach,
leadership.
Korach is there.
Korach, it's bad leadership. How about the beginning of Sefer Bamidbar? What's the first topic? Remember, it starts with the 12 Nassim running the army and counting the people and organizing the camp. Remember the Meraglim? That's bad leadership. It's 12 leaders again. In Pasha Balotcha, Esfalish Shivim Ish Misidnei Yisrael. Remember, Moshe can't do it himself, and God says, get 70 helpers to help you. And then we have Eldad and Medad. One of the underlying themes of Sefer Bamidbar is leadership, especially leaders of all the tribes. Remember, Moshe loses his leadership, and Aaron and Miriam die, and then Yeshua takes over. Then we have Pinchas taking leadership. We have good leadership and bad leadership all through the book. But we're transitioning from Moshe leading to the 12 tribes leading. So don't be surprised that from the perspective of leadership, I tell the story of Chanukat HaMizbeach in Sefer Bamidbar from the perspective of the Kohanim, of the special Korban of Aaron, in the Kodesh of the Yom Kippur Korban, that's Yom Shvi that brings Shem back. That's in Sefer Vayikra. And the nation donating all the material and building the Mishkan, that's going to be in Sefer Shmot. You follow the three different themes? It's the same day, the same event, but each book is presenting that day, that important day, from a different perspective. Sefer Shmot, the unity of the nation, the project. Remember, the nation doesn't build the Mishkan builds the nation. Didn't we talk about that? The community doesn't build a shul builds a community. We did that sure a long time ago when we did Shmot. And in Sefer Vayikra, it's the dedication of the Kohanim and their dedication to their service and doing things properly. Following God's commands in the Mishkan. That brings the Shekhinah in Sefer Vayikra. And what brings the Shekhinah in Sefer Bamidbar is going to be the unity of the leaders, the leadership. Now, what's the last avodah we do in the Mikdash? What's the last thing that's done?
Bein Arbaim.
Okay. Now, and what do we do Bein Arbaim? There's the Tamid Bein Arbaim. And what else is done at the evening?
Cleaning of the menorah.
Doing what?
Cleaning the menorah.
Not cleaning the menorah. We clean the menorah in the morning.
Light the menorah.
Now, has Aaron ever lit the menorah yet?
No.
What's the first day Aaron's going to light the menorah? On Yom HaShmini, on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Now, he does that at the end of the day. What happened in the meantime?
His sons died.
And what question might come up?
Can I,
Should he do
Can
that?
Can he light or not light?
Yeah.
no, no.
What's the next pasuk in Chumash? What happens in the end of Parshat Naso? Let's go open up our Chumash again. We were in Parshat Naso. Where were we? Let's go back to we in Bamidbar, not Shmot. Where are we? Here we go. In Sefer Bamidbar, we finished Perek Zayin, right? When Moshe would go in, then we had the Shekhinah coming and God speaking to Moshe from the Oel Moed. That's Perek Zayin. Look how Perek Het begins.
Bahalotcha.
Right? What did God tell Moshe Rabbeinu? Tell Aaron, remind him to light the menorah, and Aaron does it. Asking Aaron, in contrast to what his sons did. And that is, now, I'm trying to explain why is Balotcha where it is. We know the classic answer that Rashi brings down of Chashodat Aaron. Remember, we brought a technical reason, a more psychological reason. But from a technical point of view, it makes because once I put the stories together and realize it's all in the same day, it makes sense why God has to remind Aaron, you have to light the menorah, and you should light the menorah, even though you're onin. And Aaron does, as God commanded him.
So why make it a separate parsha? We don't hear it till next week.
That's not a question on Chumash. That's a question on
Right.
yeah. Remember when what Chumash wasn't broken up to Parshat Shavua.
Right.
So, but instead, I'm trying to explain when you study Sefer Bamidbar, we're just jumping over the place. Nazir, remember that belongs in Vayikra. Birkat Kohanim belongs in Shmini. Remember, Chanukat Tansim belongs at the end of Sefer Shmot.
Mm-hmm.
Balotka belongs back in Parshat Truma Tetzaveh. I'm giving it seems very disjoint. Now it makes sense what's happening in Sefer Bamidbar. Now, what did we do on the last day of Hanukkah? Because we only have 8 days. We don't. If we were Christians, it would be perfect. We have all 12 days. The laning. I didn't say that. You're not supposed to know that, but I know that song from growing up with the partridge in the pear tree. So I grew up in I went to public school because I lived in a small town. No, but seriously, on the 8th day we read from the 8th
All
day
the
all the way to the
parshas.
12th day, but we continue. We end with on Zot Chanukah we end with Parsha Balotcha in a very beautiful way. So now when I try to make sense, now we understand what we're reading on Hanukkah. And if you're a Gabbai or something, I highly suggest that you should start with Birkat Kohanim. Now,
Wouldn't it be better if that Pasuk Pei Tet was a standalone paragraph? Wouldn't that make more sense?
you have to write letter to the editor. You can put it in the suggestion box, okay? But the Parshiot Halacha Moshe Sinai. Now, if you could have started you could have started a Parsha there because you can do that. So they could have started Parshat Knesset long enough, but it definitely. But Adrab, I think it's connecting it to the 12 Nisim. It's the Dafka by connecting it together. It's telling you that the reason God was able to speak to them is because they all brought it on the same day. That was my little class in Achdut for in honor of Hanukkah. So again, what I tried to do today is show you the connection between Sefer Bamidbar and Sefer Vayikra, and the idea that Yomash, the 7 days of Miluim, is the model later for the Nazir, which shows the connection between Kohanim and the people. Birkat Kohanim, even though it's mentioned in Vayikra, really belongs. I mean, it's recorded in Sefer Bamidbar because it's part of a leadership thing. Maybe I'll mention briefly. Birkat Kohanim is done by the Kohanim, but it relates to the menorah, doesn't it? Because remember Ner Mitzvah V'Torah Or? So the main job of the Kohanim, the main job that we did last week, the main job of the Kohanim was lighting the menorah. And that's the Avodat Tamid, because the Torah you bring in order to light the menorah, and the Shulchan is only once a week, and the Eish is what the people bring, that's the Korban of the people. The main job of the Kohanim is to teach Torah, and symbolically lighting the menorah is reminding the Kohanim it's their job to teach Torah, because that's what really brings blessing. And the people's job is to learn the Torah from them, and that will bring blessing. That was last week's share, wasn't it? We did the blessing side.
Yes.
So what brings blessing is keeping the Torah, it's keeping the mitzvot. The Kohanim bring blessing by teaching Torah. Remember, God blesses them by keeping the mitzvot. The Kohanim facilitate the blessing by teaching them Torah. That's why we need Birkat Kohanim. That's why, and the idea that when God says, Ya'ir Hashem panav elecha, what's God's light? God's light is the light from creation, from day one, where light is the ability to perceive God. So remember, Ki or panecha natat lenu Hashem Elokeinu Torah t'chaim b'av v'chesed. Maybe we'll do next time. We'll show you the Sim Shalom. How in Sim Shalom we explain that the or panim of Hashem that we're asking God to fulfill Birkat Kohanim in Sim Shalom. We should bring here. Let me just show you real fast. It should be over here. Where is Sim Birkat Kohanim in the menorah? And here, after Birkat Kohanim. Now we do. There was after Birkat Torah in the morning. We do something from Chumash, which is about Limud Torah, Birkat Kohanim, because the Mishnah is about Limud Torah, and the Braita we read is also about Talmud Torah. So Birkat Kohanim has to be about Talmud Torah. We do this every morning, and Sim Shalom explains why, because Sim Shalom is a prayer that God fulfilled Birkat Kohanim. Remember, so Sim Shalom Tova V'Racha Chaim Chen. Remember Vichuneka. Aleinu v'Kol Yisrael Amecha. Barucheinu Avinu B'Or Panecha. Remember Ya'ir Hashem Panav Elecha. And what's Or Panim? Ki V'Or Panecha Natat Lenu Hashem Elokeinu Torah T'chaim B'Avat Chesed. That's the Or Panim of Hashem. What enables us to see God, to perceive God, is the Torah. So that's the light. Light enables us to perceive God, and lighting the menorah helps us, represents that idea of perceiving God, and that Torah leads to, remember, B'Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, the Kibud Av V'Ein, Gimul Chasadim, Ashkamat Beit HaMidrash, Hachnasat Orchim, Bikur Cholim, etc. All that good behavior is an extension, will be the result of learning Torah. Talmud Torah is not instead of that, but will lead to that. And therefore, the Or Panim of Hashem is this Torah, which will lead us to Abad Chesed and doing tzedakah and getting blessing and having rachamim and living in peace, etc. Therefore, it should be good in God's eyes to bless us and the whole people with peace, again, if we do our good job keeping his mitzvot. So there's a little discussion of Chanukah and Chanukah Mizbeach, which is really the main Torah reading for Chanukah, which fits the story of Chanukah very nicely. Okay, anywhere, I have things in the chat. Let me check real fast. I got to finish chat. We have the source sheets. Wait a second. What's it say here? So you were saying Aaron was comforted because he knew that the first temple would be destroyed, had a part in the second one. No, I didn't say that. That Rashi says that. Because I'll say that. But that's Rashi and Chosha Datash Aaron.
That makes Aaron a monster in some ways, because the sadness for destruction of the first temple should outweigh his joy at whatever small part he has.
Yeah.
That makes him a monster, is what he's saying.
So I said that's not a question. That's a question on the midrash. So don't write a letter to
yes, but
you have question on
some midrashim, just even if Rashi mentions it, they're just difficult to swallow.
Yeah. So you have to understand what was the intention of the person writing the midrash. The midrash is trying to tie together the date of Hanukkah and Vayit Sheni, with the Nevuah of Haggai dedicating the Mishkan on the 25th of Kislev
but the cleverness is outweighed by the implications.
Okay, that's exactly. So it's midrash. I'm not. Don't think a midrash is a midrash. Not everyone has to like them. Okay, but I agree. I see the problem. Nadav and Avihu very good. Sultan Imam Milin very good. And who did Parshat Shavua? That's a class you can get, but that was a custom in Babylonia in the exile. Because in Israel they did a 3-year cycle, and Babylon decided to do a 1-year cycle with starting every year in Simchat Torah. I'm sure someone's given a share on that before in Torah in Motion, but it's a classic. What's the last one? Unbelievable. Okay, great. Thank you, Chaim. Okay. Anyway, everyone have a good week. Any announcements, Rabbi J?
Not really. Where you're off to a flight now?
No, I just landed. I was in San Diego. I was in La Jolla for Shabbat, and I just flew by way of New York to Florida. I did the red eye. So I got to go back to sleep now.
You didn't have any snow on the ground where you are?
No, it's beautiful here.
We also beautiful.
I was in Chicago on Thursday, though. I had plenty of snow in Chicago on Thursday.
Baruch Hashem. Okay. By the way, I really don't know who did Parshat HaShavua. I don't know, actually, of course, we know Babylonia, 3 years, 1 year, etc.
Get one of your, I'm sure Mark must know. That's his kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's got to be someone who could give a share on that.
Yeah, I have to find out who exactly. Also, I want to know who did Rishon, Sheni, Shvi, because we know that the prakim were done by Stephen Langton, the Archbishop of Canterbury in the 13th century, but the prakim that we all use. But who did Rishon, Shvi? Because sometimes it's very strange where they stop.
Different kilot have different customs there.
Right, but not too many. They're pretty universal. Anyways, that's interesting.
That's a good thing. That's a good story for tonight.
Rabbi Gaster of England has done work on that, either him or his father, either Theodore Gaster or his father, who was chief rabbi of England.
Okay. When was that? What years?
Oh, a long time ago.
Yeah, no. What
before
years
you were born.
No. But when he's chief rabbi of England, I know from Rabbi Adler. I guess it was before Hertz.
More than 100 years ago.
He was after Hertz. After Rabbi Hertz was Rabbi Adler, right? I think. And then
I don't know. All I know is he was named after, he was the 13th son of the chief rabbi, is Theodore Gaster, who was named after Herzl, but his father was chief rabbi. And
that's interesting.
He came to North America to teach.
Talking about chief rabbis of England, Immanuel Jakobowitz was named for Immanuel Kant. I don't know if people know that. That's very cute. The chief rabbi. I didn't know about the theological, but I do know because the brother lives in Toronto. Immanuel Jakobowitz, chief, prominent chief rabbi of England, before Jonathan Sacks. He was the one before Jonathan Sacks. He was named for Immanuel Kant. So, Chief Rabbis today aren't called them, whatever, it's just interesting. Like depends when you're born, There's reason I'm Jay and, my kids are have Hebrew names and I don't. I mean, I have a Hebrew name, but that's not my real, whatever. I don't have to tell you. We all know this. Okay. Usher, how did Usher get the name Usher? Were you born Usher in Toronto? I know at their bris they gave you Usher, but growing up when you went to school, you were Usher? Or that's Israel? Or you became Usher in
Dr.
Israel?
Cass.
Yeah, Dr. Cass. He did my bris too, of course. Dr. Cass.
Dr. Cass, he did my son's bris too.
No,
Dr.
but I'm
Cass
saying,
is responsible for the fact that my name is Asher Zelig Nota Ben Yehuda Tzvi Halevi.
oh my gosh. No, but I'm saying when you went to Associated, what did your teacher call it? They didn't call you Usher, did they?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, they did. Okay, so cool. You get it. Okay, very nice.
Yeah,
All
Mr.
right.
Adler. You remember Mr. Adler from was the
No, you're
principal?
a little older than I know. No, I meant
No, but the
Mr.
principal
Burke was.
in uh, uh,
I don't know,
uh,
Mr.
yeah,
Adler.
he
We went to the
he
same school in Toronto. Usher and myself. Usher been living in. How long are you living in Israel? 50
no, I
years
didn't
already?
go to I went to the night school.
Oh, you went to
I
night
didn't
school. You
go
didn't go
to
to
the
day
day
school,
school.
right?
I
Okay.
went to public school and I went to the night school. And I was
Okay.
in the night school from the time I was 8 until the time I was 16.
Okay, very good. No, I went to the day school, of course, but right, they still had, yeah, all right. Anyways,
So,
okay.
Aser, you need a business card when you get Aliyah.
That's right, I do. The Gabbayim complain all the time.
Yeah, I get it. I would never give you an aliyah. I mean, it's tircha de
Except
tzivura. I'm trying to get rid of the Misha Barracks in my. I was hoping in COVID they get rid of Misha Barracks, and unfortunately, they still stay Misha Barracks. Hey, halavai the
that
shul.
wasn't what my parents wanted to name me. My
Oh,
parents, everybody had a Yiddish name. My dad was called Herschel. He was
Herschel.
that Tzvi
Well, I'm Tzvi
Hamufir.
Yehuda. I'm Jay Hirsch. My official English name is Jay Hirsch because in Hebrew I'm Tzvi Yehuda, which is Herschel. Right.
So
Okay.
my dad, when he went to public school, they called him Harry because the teachers weren't going to pronounce in the public,
That's what I mean. That's what I figured. Yeah, right. Of course. No one's going
whereas
to.
Rabbi Nosson Kamenetsky, who went to public school, was in public school in mixed class in when he was 8 years old.
Right.
So
For those
Nosson
who
was
don't know, Rav
Nathan.
Yaakov Kamenetsky was in Toronto in the 30s. So
That's right.
his kids went to. There were no day schools in the 1930s. They went to public school, of course. Yeah.
That's right. Then Nathan, no problem. But my parents wanted to call me Zelig Note.
Yeah. No. Yeah. That
Two
doesn't go
Yiddish
over well in
names.
King Edward Public School.
Two Yiddish names.
Right.
Dr. Cass didn't agree. He said, you gotta have a Hebrew name. So he compromised. He combined them. He made it Asher Zelig Nata Nota. However, it turns out that the great grandfather that I was named after, Asher, his name really was Asher Zelig, because one of his sons is buried in Toronto, and on his tombstone it says Baruch Ber Ben Asher Zelig, and on the other side, his name really was Nota Nota, but everybody was called by their Yiddish name. But I actually, because of Dr. Cass being insistent, I got the right name.
All right, very good. Yeah, yeah. Everybody of a certain age. Dr. Cass was the mohel in Toronto. He trained Darren Jessen, who was the mohel of my kids, and he now there actually whatever. Okay, all right.
He's
Enough.
buried in the
Why
Sheresh Shemayim cemetery.
I'm sorry,
He's buried in the Chelkav Sheresh Shemayim.
Dr. Cass.
Dr. Cass, one
Yeah.
row up.
I mean, I
from
remember him.
there.
My grandfather used to daven. My grandfather, in the later years used to daven. They lived across the street from Bet Tzedek. So, Bet Tzedek is the largest shul in Canada. It's a conservative shul. And they gave a room to the people who wanted an Orthodox minyan. It's actually very nice of them, that they could daven there. And anyways, okay, I'm amazed so many people want to hear about Toronto, the growing up here. People find it interesting. Okay, everybody.
Have a good day. Have a
Yeah,
good day.
Rav
Have a
Chaim,
good
have a good day.
history.
You're in Montreal.
Yes.
Okay. You have to speak French. Well, I want to know your French name.
I do.
Henri
Actually,
Fruchter.
Rabbi
Right?
J, we met
Yes.
last year in Hanukkah.
I know we met last year. No, 2 years ago. We met in the bakery in Montreal.
That's right. That's right. That's
Of
right.
course, yes. And it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Greg Burek, my very good friend, made right. We went for his simcha 2 years ago, and on Sunday morning, driving to Toronto, we picked up bagels in the bakery, and you recognized me. I mean, but you too. Okay, everybody. Benny Gesundheit.
Have a good day. Have a good week.
I'll save it in about chatzi shah. I put if you okay, I kind of call our regular shurim this week, and we look forward to learning with you. And please invite a friend, and maybe we can schmooze about Miami next week. Everybody, tell me who with Molim in Miami. Okay, everybody, have a great day. Shavua tov. Let's hear good news and all the best. Thank you.